Welcome. It's a great pleasure to be here. I've been in this kind of ever-changing space since 2013, and it's been quite a ride, really. I hope I can share some stories with you, some lessons I've learned along the way, some of the things I find fascinating, and some things I'm quite concerned about that I want to share, so perhaps we can dwell on it together. My name is Amin. Yeah, as I said, I got into it in 2013. I worked as part of different various communities. I worked as a journalist for a news website. I still write articles every now and then if I'm inspired enough or the topic's large enough. So I wrote over like 100-something articles until I got a bit over it. And yeah, I worked with several projects, namely BitNation, which I spent about 2.5 years, 3 years with. We recently won an award where I presented at the UNESCO House in Paris in April this year, the Grand Prix. Previous winners were organizations such as Spotify and Twitter back in the days. So it was quite a grand, it was as Grand Prix gets, I guess. But it wasn't enough. These applications of how blockchain could kind of revolutionize how we interact with each other and kind of take upon ourselves to create and innovate on a space that is very new, is very challenging and full of surprises, but at the same time, it's quite exciting. Those are my contact details. You can take a look at it later. But moving on, for me, the most important part of all of this is what got me into it, right? So how does money work? So who here can put up their hand and explain to me how money works with our current financial system? Like thoroughly, they know how it works. Please, by a show of hands, show me. All right. Isn't that weird? Like 3 or 4 people in a space filled with, let's say, over 50 people know how money works, yet every single person pretty sure works here for that particular purpose, right? Unless you work for free, which is very cool. No, do that. But majority of you would go to work so you can get paid, yet 3 or 4 out of, let's say, 100 of you, 50, let's say 50, let's be a bit conservative, knows how money works. And that's quite bizarre, isn't it? We go to school, we go to university, we go to all these educational institutions, yet the most fundamental aspect of our economy, we don't know how it functions. How does it work? How do we relate to it? All we know is we get a paycheck, and some of it goes to the government to build roads or something. And the rest of it kind of we pocket and blow on drinks or whatever. But how does it actually work? So when I show you this, what does it tell you? What it tells me is we have a system that's functionally broken. It was designed to be broken. It was never designed to be scalable and serve the needs of all the people in the world. It was designed for a specific purpose, which is to continue debt. When you have debt, it limits your choices, right? So if I have debt, I can't move around because I have to feed my family, I have to pay off my mortgage. If I have debt, it limits my choices in ways that I can't suddenly shift and move to another country because I need to get a job. I need to pay this debt. And if I don't pay it, well, I'll lose my home. I won't be able to send my kids to school. And this function of debt within our society is quite toxic. So something like 97% or something large like that of the current financial system functions on debt. So if you were to remove debt, you would practically remove most of the money that exists. So if everyone was working towards a better future where we're not in debt, there wouldn't be much money left, like 2 or 3% of it would be left. Isn't that weird? Like you would think a society would be built upon the function of getting rid of debt so people can be free, right? But instead, it's the complete opposite. We live in a society that is growing, and its growth is dependent on how much debt there is. Now that is bizarre. Some of you may not have known that. Only 3 or 4 of you put your hand up. I would say look into it. See how money works. And for me, I hope there's sound. I just want to play you this video. It's a Dutch documentary. It's called Inside the Banker's Brain. I just want to play you this quick video I enjoy playing.
Grateful to you for coming before us with your particularly unique and if you like, sort of different angle coming at this approach. And I think what I'd like to start by asking you, if I may, is as an anthropologist, and with the exposure you've had to the banking sector, can you describe us how we should go about assessing a bank's culture?
If you would design an environment for short-termism, say on Mars you would set up a colony and you say, we want it to be as short-termist as we can, I'd say take the blueprint of a bank. Because on every level you're encouraged to think of yourself and of yourself only. But it seems we have a far deeper problem in the sense that the rules themselves are deficient. Because otherwise, after the crisis of 2008, a lot of people would have gone to jail. The fact that after such a breakdown nobody went to jail means the rules themselves, there's something wrong with those. Ultimately, I like this cliché by now of the current banking system being Catholicism without a hell.
Alle reden voor tegenlicht om Joris Luijendijk op te zoeken voor een goed gesprek over de financiële wereld. Waarbij we gaan inzoomen op het brein van de bankier.
Nee, dat ga ik niet opdrinken. Het komt al heel lang iets wits uit.
Ik heb nu je optreden helemaal bekeken.
Ah ja.
Wat is het voor een commissie precies?
Dit is een subpanel van de Commission on Standards in Banking. Ze horen dus een aantal senior mensen, hoge mensen in banken. En ze verhoren een aantal mensen experts. En die pakken ze allemaal scherp aan. En dan hebben ze ook een aantal mensen die ze eigenlijk ter ontspanning opvoeren. Ja. En ik voelde me wel goed daar. I really wonder if the financial sector is truly an asset. The UK is in the same position as my country, the Netherlands, with a banking sector that is several sizes the economy. And, well, leverage. I just wonder how many people in the general public understand leverage, and that if the value of the assets goes down by 5 to 10%, the bank is technically bust. And you've got 4 of those banks. So yes, they may look like an asset, but from another perspective, they are 4 huge hydrogen balloons hanging over the head of this society, just like they're hanging over Dutch society with ING and until recently ABN AMRO, until a greater fool relieved us from that. But so is it truly truly an asset? Toen ik een van mijn eerste interviews opstuurde naar de geïnterviewde. En een paar dagen later kreeg ik een e-mailtje terug. En hij zei van, ik heb dat laten lezen aan mijn vrouw. En ze zei, ik snap eindelijk een beetje wat jij doet. En hij was al 20 jaar bankier. En hij was al 20 jaar met die vrouw. En het was gewoon nog niet gelukt om die vrouw te stellen wat die man nou eigenlijk in dat grote glazen gebouw de hele dag doet. En dat is dus heel raar. Het is ongelooflijk. Het is ongelooflijk. Als je gewoon wil weten over gender in Gaza en je kijkt gewoon naar recent onderzoek, krijg je zo 10 papers. Maar als je wil weten hoe hedge fund managers werken, dan krijg je alleen hele abstracte beschrijvingen hoe iemand in de universiteit zegt dat het zou moeten gaan volgens economische theorieën, maar gewoon etnografie, mensen die daar op de grond heel lang hebben rondgekeken, bijna niks. Dus ja.
Anyways, you get the point. I think this is very interesting, right? We should spend some time on the function that money has within our society. I'll use this. I just want to get rid of this. Anyways, it doesn't matter. So what's blockchain? What does it mean, you know? I'm sure you've heard this buzzword around, you know, the blockchain. What does it do? It's the revolutionary thing that's going to save the world. God forbid we change our behaviors. And it's very funny for me, and at the same time very inspiring, because we have this set of tools that we can use to better our society. So how does it make things better? For one, before I continue, I just want to show you this. And you can see the link there. So this was released on 8th of November. So it's talking about a bail-in within the European Union. So during the bail-in, which means a bailout is when they take taxpayers' money and bail out financial institutions as they did in 2008. A bail-in works with taking your savings, so having access to your bank account. So this is embedded within a recent publication from the European Union. And it says during that time, they can give you access to cover your cost of living, you know, so you don't go hungry, or, you know, you can feed yourself a bit. But that's what bail-in is, so they have access to your savings account. It just happened in other countries. It's not a joking matter. I would read up this document because this affects everyone as long as you live in the European Union. And everything does look great until it doesn't, right? 2008, not many people saw it coming. There were people who kind of like gave warnings that this is coming, but not a whole deal was done about it. Most people thought they were crazy. The economy is doing great. This is the peak time of our life, the golden ages, right? Then 10 million people lost their homes. And that was quite bizarre. So I would recommend looking into that. So how can we differentiate that? So what's the cause issue here? The cause issue is that monetary supply is in the hands of an organization, so it's centralized, right? So with the European Union, it's, you can print out euros. In the US, you can print out US dollars. And these are all handled with centralized organizations, central banks. And central banks, as long as they have control over this, it means that you don't really have a say. There's no petition, hey, we would like to print out another $1 billion. Are you guys okay with this? Yes or no? I've never seen such petition. If you have, that would be cool. But in terms of using blockchain to kind of use it as a function for money, things change a bit. Because the rules are then a bit more transparent. We get to see how it operates. Computer's freaking out, the information overload. But yeah, we get to see how it functions, right? So in the case of Bitcoin, it will eventually get close to 21 million. It will never reach 21 million, but it will get very close to 21 million. And that's inscribed from the beginning. And if you want to change this, you need people's consent. And for various coins, this varies. Then that's the function of it. So what cryptocurrencies allowed you to do is test out economical models without needing to go through 3 or 5 years and implanting it within a country and society and seeing how it works. You can decentralize the function of an economy and dictate from the get-go that I want there to be X amount of coins, I want it to be released on X amount period, and whether it's inflationary or deflationary, you can set these terms, right? And you can test it out and see which one kind of functions better. And this is very important, it's very vital to do this because you then experiment on the function of money and see how it works if you were to alter parts of it, if it wasn't determined or predetermined by a set group of people. And that for me is quite interesting. So finance or Bitcoin, the currency, is the first function of the blockchain in the form of Bitcoin. So it's the blockchain in terms of Bitcoin is the underlying system architecture behind Bitcoin. And you can use this same system architecture for more than just currency, for more than just money. You can use it for various examples, which I will cover. So waste of power. Who here has read for sure an article on how Bitcoin is a waste of power, you know? Yeah, for sure all of you have. Yeah, that's it. Who actually believes that it's a waste of power? Yeah? Can I ask why you believe so?
It can be done different and cheaper, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but you also have to think about the energy consumption of the institutions that it's seeking to replace.
Yeah, for sure. And that is very important, right? Do you know why we can look at how much electricity it uses? Because you can actually see it. It's transparent. You can see what is happening in terms of Bitcoin mining. And with other cryptocurrencies, you can kind of measure it. You can see this. But do we have a system similar to that for the financial institution? Do we have that for the pharmaceutical industry? Do we have that for the weapon industry? Do we have that for the military industry? We don't have any of these transparent windows into it. And now we're freaking out over Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is the least of your problems, I promise you that. Imagine you had the same glimpse into seeing how much power all these industries I just mentioned consume. It would blow you away, you know? And sure, we can do it differently. Sure, that is true. And there are other methods of utilizing this computational power and the power that goes into the mining aspect of Bitcoin and applying it for different things. So an example for me is Gridcoin. Gridcoin uses this computational power and applies it for research. So if you're in the scientific field, you can refer to it as the BOINC research facility, or the protocol, that you can apply it for interstellar activities, for scientific activities. So you share the computational power for good or for space research, for looking for for aliens or whatever you want. That's actually one of the functions. QAcoin uses it to analyze protein folding. So Stanford University has an initiative that you can traditionally just like leave your computer on at night, and it uses your CPU to kind of do analysis on protein folding. And protein folding is quite important because that's where a lot of I guess diseases, you could say, occur if the folding in the protein doesn't occur properly. So they analyze it and see what can go wrong. And QAcoin uses that same kind of system and says, well, if you do it, we'll also give you this cryptocurrency. So not only do you leave your computer on, but you can get paid in it too. So now that's starting to slowly use it for a better term. Storage uses it for distribution of object storage. So if you're a web developer, you can store your files onto it already. That's a function. In terms of Bitcoin, I don't see it as a disadvantage. You know, it takes something like a ton of dirt to extract 1 gram of gold. That's if you're lucky. You can't just go like dig a hole here where you get to the ocean. But somewhere where you can dig, you can't just do that and get gold. So you have a lot of failures to do so. But people don't apply that same notion to these extraction methods, right? So some facts that are very important. One of them is that we have financial institutions that, as mentioned in the video, bypass law. So traditionally, if I don't pay my debt, if I don't pay my taxes, I'll have organizations come after me. I'll be in a lot of trouble. I'm sure you in the Netherlands know how important paying tax is. And this can cause a lot of issues for me, right? I can even go to jail in some countries. I'm sure IRS is powerful enough if I do the wrong thing to send me to jail. Though I'm just a small guy, right? How much can I default on my taxes? Let's say 1,000, 2,000. But when the problem gets to an institutional level where you have millions, billions, let's keep it at that level so we can kind of comprehend it, then you suddenly have an issue when the people causing, or not causing, kind of robbing society from the money that should be going to it, or doing things that rob society in terms of 2008. If you look into Ron Paul's analysis of 2008, $16 trillion of taxpayers' money was taken to bail out the banks within the US and other international organizations around Europe and wherever else they have ties with. Now, $16 trillion is a shit ton of money, right? I don't know how big that is. I've never comprehended it, but I promise you it's a lot of money. And there's something innately wrong in that you can do something wrong, but as long as you have the right lawyer, know the right people, and come from an organization big enough to be a threat to the state, you can get bailed out. And this is something that's fundamentally wrong with our current system, right? So if we're going to have a law or a rule, it should apply to everyone. If it doesn't apply to everyone, then it's not really a law. Then it's just this kind of thing that people listen and follow to, according to. Other aspects is getting hacked. This is something we don't really hear about. We don't really know what's going on with this, but this happens a lot. My personal data, whether I like it or not, when I apply for a visa within the Schengen area, so it could be the Netherlands, Denmark, wherever, they take my biometrics. If they don't take my biometrics, I don't get the visa. For me, taking my biometrics is rape. That's the way I see it. I don't like it. So I'll give you an example of this. After World.2, a lot of people that were targeted, they could change their surname, they could move to a different country, take on a new identity. I can't change my biometrics without having some crazy cosmetic surgery or something very intrusive, right? So I'm not saying that the people that hold my biometrics are going to do something wrong with it, which, by the way, they keep for 10 years if you are approved, and if you're not approved, they keep it for 20 years or something like that. And that's ridiculous, right? So I'm not saying they're going to have access to it, but what if someone hacks them? What if there's a war and someone has access to their, data breach and get access to all these people's biometrics, and they want to single out a certain race of people? How quickly can they pinpoint these people? And this is an issue we don't hear about, right? So we get the UN 2020, and they're like, we're going to give refugees identity, we'll take in biometrics. Yeah, it's the new way. Let's revolutionize the world. But that's not really nice. What if you are a political, you have issues with your country, that's why you left, right? And your system kind of records these biometrics and your whereabouts. What if someone gets access to these? And these aren't questions that we seem to ask because, everyone, well, I guess majority of you in this room probably have a phone with a biometric unlocking. And I always bring this up with people. I'm like, why did you get that? Why would you give your biometrics to your phone? And they're like, oh, it's just convenient. I put my thumb on it. I'm like, putting 4 numbers in there was pretty convenient enough, right? Drawing that thing on Android was very convenient. Like you went from 1 second to 0.8 of a second. Is your time really that valuable? What are you doing in that extra 0.2 that you were like, fuck it, I'll give it my biometrics? And that for me is very interesting. We take convenience and we forget about what we're giving up by doing so, right? So there's other aspects. So that's IRS, Dropbox, LinkedIn, ISP. This is very relevant within the Netherlands because as of next year, you can, the government agencies, I forget which one, they can track and monitor your internet activity. And they can do so in an intrusive manner. So it's not just general checking, they can do it by doing some kind of a fishy stuff to get to it. And this has huge ramifications, right? And as of next year, they're taking away your ability to kind of, what is it called? I forget, so I'll move on. But being able to kind of vote for it, they're taking that away. So you don't even get people's voice about opinion. I'll skip some of these. This is another thing which I find very interesting, right? So traditionally, if you come from a business background, you would look up to such people and be like, all right, well, you know, these people know what they're doing, and I should listen to their advice. But even such people oppose evolution, you know, innovation such as Bitcoin and the digital currencies, because you're essentially attacking the centralized organizations that up to now have determined how we live our lives through the control of money, which 90% of you in this room didn't even know how it functions. So you can understand why they would have an issue with this. How many of you in this room actually know how blockchain works? That's cool. I won't go over it then. But this is a very simplified manner if you want to look at it. So blockchain can set records on it. It can be financial records. It could be other useful information such as hash or files in case of storage. And yeah, you can do a lot of things with it. The point of it is to be immutable. If you don't have the immutability function, such as we've seen in terms of Ethereum and their hard fork, you start to question some aspects of it, right? You start to go, well, if we don't have the immutability, what else are we going to give up? And there's a really lovely quote which I like, which says something along the lines of, when a society perishes, it's that they forgot the principles of the things that got them there in the first place, right? So if we see Bitcoin and blockchain space kind of transform into something different and become another tainted image, it's because we have forgotten what brought it there. And what brought it there was transparency. What brought it there was the crypto-anarchists that helped bring this movement forward. And I don't know what your background is in this room, but you must never forget this was an open source protocol that, yes, some kids and activists and other people that were very intelligent and dedicated sat behind and innovated on. It wasn't the banks, it wasn't the guy wearing a suit, and it wasn't any of these institutions, I promise you that. But suddenly there has been a shift, right? Suddenly these players have come into it because it attracts it. As of April this year, when the price went up to, you know, past 1,000, 1,500, they were like, oh, Bitcoin's very interesting, right? Like, how come I didn't hear about this before? And it's sad that it needed the monetary aspect to rise to that limit for people to suddenly take on an interest. But that's what happened. And we must never forget that the people that pioneered this were the kids that got laughed at. I got laughed at. I'm sure there's a few people in this room who were laughed at by people who would come to meetups and go, look at you kids working in your basement. You don't know anything. You need our help to make it get going. But it wasn't them. So we must never forget who brought it along. So I want to just bring that up. And it was open source, and the mentality was about sharing, was about keeping things open. So now I see a few blockchain initiatives that have patents on it. And this makes me just want to like laugh and cry at the same time. Because it's like you wouldn't have never had that idea to patent in the first place if someone didn't make their idea open source. Your idea is more grand than theirs, that you deserve a patent and they didn't. And that for me is quite nice to see. I like this because it puts some things that I just said into perspective. So Linux is one of the most powerful operating systems on the planet. And from it, you've had other explorations, such as Cubes, if you've used Cube Desktop, which is extraordinary. And things like that have come from it. The reason we can innovate on Linux, the reason we can innovate using Bitcoin's open source protocol is because it is open source. I don't need anyone's permission to go and use it and innovate on top of it. The same as internet. So I don't need to ask anyone, hey, I want to create this web application. Do I have your permission to go and make this? No, I just go make it. And if it's good, it will work. People will use it. Same thing applies here. At the same time, you exponentially grow the ability for one to innovate and to also patch things and to also bring other inputs into it. Because if it's open source, in the case of Linux, any person with a computer, even in, let's say, you know, like in Iceland or in South Pole, wherever they are, wherever, it doesn't matter, it doesn't care where you are, who you are, what your background is, what your resume is, where you grew up, what your race is, it does not care. It will take your input, and as long as it benefits the entire network, it will accept it because it's in the favor of everyone. In the case of Windows, I can't do this. I have to go work for them and then push my idea and hope the guy above me doesn't feel threatened enough by my idea to push it forward as mine and not claim it for himself. And that's the reality of it, right? Ownership. Ownership is very toxic. So during World War II, one of the things that gave Germany its power, one of the things, was that they didn't really care about patenting. They were just innovating and moving along. It was the English culture that was really about patenting and locking things down. And it was very threatening to have a country that could innovate so quickly and not pay so much attention to patenting. Patenting is a very toxic thing because the moment you do it, you lock access to your idea. If your idea is grand enough, you'll get your rewards, as we have seen in case of many things. And you can innovate on top of it and create other things. You may have other people create things that you didn't even think about, and that is very important. So just a couple of examples that I'd like to bring up. One is storage. So storage takes your hard drive. So let's say in Airbnb you have a spare room, you rent it out, you didn't have to go and build a new infrastructure called a hotel just to facilitate people sleeping there. You took something that was already there, your room, and you kind of loaned it out to someone. They had a room, and you gained something from something that was unused before. Storage takes the same concept and applies it to hard drive space. So if you have a hard drive that you don't really use, you can do the same thing and earn storage coins in the process. And this allows you to be rewarded without going out of your way to do anything. ETHLend is another one that finished their token sale today. But apart from that, what's more important is that it allows people to create a peer-to-peer lending facility. So the people on the right pay, that's their kind of percentages in interest, and the people on the left pay a much higher percentage. So if you were able to create a system where they can learn from each other, that would be amazing, right? So people would suddenly have access to these tools and have access to money where it's most needed, where they didn't have that access before. And that's very critical in a peer-to-peer system. Just to kind of wrap it up, is it all good? No, it's not all good. Some things are missing in this space, right? So when you take an Uber, you rarely think about, well, in a normal traditional company, the driver would be getting perhaps insurance, would be getting benefits, would have some things like holiday, leave, and these aspects. In case of Uber, if you fall over, no one's going to like come and help you really. There's some missing elements to this, and we need these introduced within the peer-to-peer networks. So it's not all good. Blockchain isn't going to change everything. You still need to implement some ideas within it to kind of allow people to be protected from some things. So in the case of ICOs right now, we have huge amounts of garbage going around. But through that garbage, there's 2 or 3% which are really nice. And that's the evolutionary theory of Darwinism, right? So things kind of evolve based on what functions and what doesn't. But we need to make sure some things are protected and looked after better. So in the case of Bitcoin, what if it was created by artificial intelligence? What if it wasn't a human being? What if Satoshi Nakamoto was an AI? And it created this network for people to be a part of, so it could grow and become this massive computer network. And that, for me, is like a really cool idea to think about, right? And as an AI, I could see that happening. It's like, how can I get the humans? Money, that's it. I'll give them lots of money. And from there, they will build me the network that I need. And it's something funny to think about, but it's not too far-fetched. But there are other issues, right? So right now, we saw the crash today. I'm sure most of you are looking at the market, and I loved it. I saw it go down. I was just like, yeah. And not many of you may have shared those feelings because, you know, I don't know when you put your money in there, you know? But for me, I never put money into Bitcoin. I worked for it. I mined using my skills and my knowledge, and I worked with other organizations to mine with it using my time and efforts, right? So that way, you don't get too caught up in it. But I love that it crashed, and I'll tell you why. Because it showed people that it's not all good. You don't just like put money in. Like I've seen since 2013 so many crashes. And it's so funny to watch it. The news changes, people freak out. They're like, shit, what are we gonna do? It's all a scam. China's gonna ban it. Oh no, they didn't. Oh, maybe they will, but Russia's gonna ban it. Oh no, maybe they won't. Putin loves it, Ethereum, yay. You know, it's just crazy, and that's what's really going on. And you don't know where to go. You don't know where to put your money into. But the sharing economy is growing, right? Whether it's Bitcoin, blockchains, cryptocurrencies, tokens, applications that come afterwards, holochain, hashgraph, all of these innovations that are taking place, they're all showing us that there's a vast need for us to be able to innovate and create P2P systems that bypass intermediaries. And this is very important because we have seen and felt the devastation of having to rely on one entity to provide us our security. And innately, it is an evolutionary path to move away from that. It was fine, it got us here. But we have the tools now, the technology, to move away from that. But we need to be careful. What I always want to express is that Bitcoin and digital currencies, if not done properly, if made privatized, if used by entities that are not transparent, can be the biggest monitoring tool the planet has ever seen. You will be tracked from your single coffee payment to your car travel to your, like everything. Every single cent that comes out of your account can be monitored and tracked. Your tax will automatically be deducted. Your accounts can be frozen. Like, it is a tool just like internet, which was designed to kind of start off as this tool that was free people, share knowledge, and boom, we got switched over to now this tool that is the biggest surveillance system on the planet. And the same thing can happen with Bitcoin. So we must not forget these things. So we might not forget that no technology exists that is immune from corruption. It can happen to any of it. Any of these systems can be taken and pushed forward by centralized organizations as a tool of suppression. So for example, I'm not sure if you saw it, in China they pushed out the social rating app, right? So for example, depending on your popularity or network and who you connect with, how quickly you pay your bills and things like that, you get certain points, and this would determine how quickly you get your visa, if you even need to apply for an application, loans, and a lot of other things. And this is the most fascist thing I've ever seen in my life. But it is happening, and it is happening because people look at their phone and forget the consequences of what it means to entrust their lives with this piece of technology and give it all your information and your tools. And this is where I bring it back to that biometrics. We must not forget that convenience comes at a cost, right? The convenience of putting your finger on your phone and having it just slide open your applications comes at a cost that now your phone has your biometrics on it. And what else happens from there is now we have Apple scanning faces, right? So now you've got that. And there's a funny story that took place on a Qatar aeroplane, which I thought was hilarious. So this guy was sleeping. His wife took his phone, kind of put his thumb on it, and unlocked his phone, and then saw messages between him and another lady. And it caused such a ruckus that they had to land the plane. Yeah. You shouldn't be doing that in the first place, but if you are, it shows you kind of the flip side of the coin, right? So there's two sides to it. His 0.2 seconds of saving time came at a great cost, you could say. So what else can we do differently? So internet has kind of become this disgusting place, right? It's so hard to find information, there's so much crap on there, Google ranks everything in together, and it's just, it used to be nice, but it's changed a bit. Meshing networks give me some hope, right? There's initiatives like ZeroNet. Is it ZeroNet? Yeah, ZeroNet. And they don't use a token. It's a protocol, you use it, you have decentralized internet. And when I used it, I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is going to change my life. And it did, because I went on there and I saw how we can function without the need of a centralized system. And it allows people to kind of, in rural countries that can't afford internet connection, to kind of chip in, get one connection, and distribute it within a network in that certain region. It allows people to share information. So if in a part of I think in Africa somewhere, it's not right for me to say Africa because it's a huge continent, but I don't know which specific country within Africa it was. They had very irregular bus timetables. So they created a meshing network, and as a part of that network, they update each other about the bus timetables and help each other out. They have their own kind of Facebook, like sort of a Facebook. They have movie nights where they kind of stream movie throughout the network and you can watch it. So it brings people to get a bit closer together. this is in Rotterdam. I just thought it was cool. So it's a crowdfunded bridge. So for those of you who are like, well, if we take away tax, who's going to build the roads? You can crowdfund it. And not all of it obviously was paid for by the people, so they chipped in 25 bucks each, but a couple of million came from the government. But the idea initiated as a crowdfunding tool, and it was very beautiful to see this. Anyways, so just to wrap it up, convenience comes at a cost. Bitcoin can change things, and it has changed things, but it also has caused a lot of issues, because a lot of people have lost money, and a lot of people have gained money. A lot of people have created jobs through it, and a lot of people are losing jobs because of it. Everything has its positives and negatives, right? But we have to kind of not forget the convenience comes with a cost, and that such technologies are still very early. It is very, very early. Until your Bitcoin address comes into a readable sentence or word that you choose, you can still bet that it is very early. It's like internet, email addresses that went from IP addresses to now you have something at your own domain. And these will take time. We will build tools on it, and we will see reputation systems. And we've got to make sure we align with the right strategy, right? So we not get caught up in IBM Hyperledger and move on to something that's a bit more open and it's a bit more human-driven. And not forget the kind of resources that put together these systems, that it was the people that got laughed at, and it wasn't big money coming into it. And I have worked with many venture capitalists, and something I see always in common is that they say, I'll get the best developer in LA to work on this, and I'll get the best of this, best of this, best of this. But I always laugh at them, because I'm like, you're not the first person to say this to me, because you have money, and you think, with my money, I'll get the best of everyone, and I will build the best tools. But the best innovations in the world were not created by rich kids or the best of something. It was created by the guy in his garage who said, screw this, I'm going to build this. I don't care what happens. And that is a fundamental thing that's very hard for these sort of people to understand, that it's not the drive of the best to do it. It's the drive of the person that cared enough, that sat awake for 4 weeks, 4 years, trying to make this tool work, and then it worked. So just some closing remarks. That's my organization, among many, but that's my main one. But I use this kind of educate people. I speak at universities, places like this, and kind of just give people an insight as to what's happening, because it frightens me how quickly the culture has changed within this space. It went from people helping each other to sharing to suddenly becoming this like a bit of a tainted thing. And I want to always make sure I'm there to point out the differences, to let people know that, you know, what it was all about and what it's always been about, and that we need to make sure we don't let the wrong players come in, preaching good and changing the world, whereas they have no intention of doing such a thing. Anyways, it's not all dark. There's a lot of good things happening, obviously. I showed you some projects that are doing really well. And if you see any problems within this space, innovate and find solutions. Anything that you find that's missing, that's wrong, is your chance to create, it's your opportunity. So yeah, I hope you like my presentation. It's been a long time since I've been here, and yeah, I'll be seeing you guys soon, hopefully at some stage. Cheers for listening. Any questions?
Wow, thank you very much.
No problem.
It was,
Any questions,
really
Bob?
inspirational, of course.
Yeah. Is it still
So
recording?
you talked a lot about the threats
it still
from
recording?
outside, but how about the threats from within? Because we see a lot of powerhouses in miners rising up and actually controlling the whole network.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like where it gets a bit dark. Look, these things will happen because as long as you have tools such as media, people will use them for their own advantage. So in the case of, you know, we've seen it with Bitcoin Cash, wrong information can get out. Like, in my opinion, Bitcoin Cash is not bad. Someone expressed their opinion and their voice, and it should not be kind of put down, and like, Bitcoin's the only one. Cryptocurrencies is subjective. If you don't like a system, move on and work on a different one that you agree with. How to stop these things? I hope eventually we will have reputation systems. I hope eventually we will have some sort of a transparency as to what's going on. Right now, not many people care because it's making them money, you know? And as long as it's making them money, they're like, I don't care if Russia's mining it, China's mining it, I don't give a shit, it's going up. And that's the sad reality of it. And, you know, that's just the way it is. But we all have a choice, right? Like for me, I don't agree with Ethereum, so I sold on my Ethereum because I didn't believe immutability is something we should lose. That's my personal choice. And yeah, it may go up in a lot in the price, but I don't give a crap because principles matter more to me than whatever money that comes from it. But I can't expect other people to be like that. 99% of people would think I'm crazy for even thinking that, you know? And how do you change that? It just comes down to you, what you think you can do. You can't kind of force other people to do the same. So yeah, there's a lot of shady things going on with mining and, you know, you can't do anything. You can't do anything about it. All you can do is just take your money, go into another platform and support them. At least, but you got to be willing to accept that no matter how high the price goes, that you've made your choice and that you're happy with it. And that's a big call.
Thousands of dollars just because they don't kind of agree with the views. Now, I don't know if that's really realistic. You do.
Yeah, I do.
But you're the one that's standing out.
Yeah, exactly. But that's fine. I don't care. I can't change other people's opinions. Such is the way of life.
Yeah, following on from that, don't you think that just holding Bitcoin makes people more responsible and long-term minded and more prudent?
By holding it?
Yes.
How does that make you more responsible?
Make you more responsible, take care of your own property, take care of your own things, support and things that you think are good things. I find myself, my children started saving since they get their allowance in Bitcoin. It's a great thing. I support a lot of people with my Bitcoin, and I find myself thinking very carefully how I wield the power that Bitcoin gives me.
But I can say the same thing about a lot of other coins.
Yeah, but in Bitcoin it's different because I bought them last year for a little and now they're worth
No,
a lot.
see, that's ridiculous. No, come on, man. I could say the same about Dash, Ethereum. I can say about a lot of the different coins. The analogy that it went up in price, therefore it's good, is ridiculous. No offense.
If you hold it yourself, it's like if you have your Dash with some other account, it's different.
Oh, you mean hold it yourself?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I apologize. I misunderstood you. What I meant to say in that case then is that you should always hold it yourself. Exactly. You should never trust any centralized organization with your money. You should never put your money on an exchange unless you're going to literally exchange or trade. If you're done trading, put it back into your wallet. And yeah, that's very valid.
Yeah,
but
I'm making my shift. I'm exiting basically the fiat financial system,
yeah,
giving up my bank accounts. It's a done deal.
Yeah.
I live in Bitcoin, exit the system, and you know, I pay very little tax, don't support wars, but I do support a lot of other good causes.
That's cool, and good on you. Everyone should do that. I haven't had a bank account for 3 years. Like, it's weird for me now walking into a bank. I feel like I'm gone back in time. I'm like, what are these people doing? It's like, they get this ticket and they're like, hello, can I access my account? You know, it's weird. It's like my money, like, fuck off. Yeah. Cheers. Cool. Cheers. Yeah, any more or should I? Yeah, go on. Do I have to go? Do I have time? I don't know what the situation is.
Here I go again. Since Bitcoin or any cryptos is not really a mainstream payment method yet because of all the discrepancies you said, it's expensive, etc.
Yeah.
How can someone live without a bank account?
Well, oh man. No, because like it's not easy for me to tell you without like breaking my personal privacy. But in theory, if one was to do it, there we go. What you could theoretically do is that you could move your assets from your normal traditional fiat system into cryptocurrencies, work for cryptocurrencies, so you're not taking cash, buying it and losing in the exchange. So I have worked, in theory, you could work for cryptocurrencies and put that money into a savings account, which could be your wallet, and then invest it in other projects. And that's how you exit. And then the way that you could come back in it, in theory, is that you could use peer-to-peer systems such as local bitcoins and exchange your Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies for cash in person. Or if you want to take it a bit further, you can get a debit card, Bitcoin debit card, and exchange it that way. Or if you really don't care about your personal privacy or security, you could use things like Coinbase and, and verify yourself and give away your personal information for a bit of convenience. Yeah, those are the methods that you can do. Or you can use Bitcoin ATM like the one Martijn put there, and there's one in, they're great machines. These are some of the things you can do. But the most beautiful thing about it is peer-to-peer, and you should. I always tell people who say, where should I buy Bitcoins? I always say, get away from the exchanges. Don't use them. Don't use any of these like centralized things. Go and meet someone, because chances are they will have some stories to tell you. They will explain some things to you. If they have a good reputation, always check the reputation. And they might share something with you that you didn't know. You'll learn something. But yeah, hope that answers your question. I think I should get off the stage. I feel like I've taken a lot of time. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.